Yet when you look at the beauty and wonders of nature, how can you doubt God? He works in everything, and His tools are life and intelligence. Just as ships at sea can be controlled by radio, so are we controlled by the radioed power and intelligence of God. Without His beam of life, we are dead. Why not seek that power which is the source of our being? Why not seek the giver instead of the gifts? That is where the real freedom lies. He is working right within your brain cells and your thoughts. If you would but contact Him within, you would find a friend who is unfailing, a lover who never lies. It is God alone who is pursuing you with His love, and who is seeking you right within you. If you would seek Him willingly, if you would pursue Him within, you would find Him. It is only the misuse of your free will and the resistance of your karma, the effects of past wrong actions, that prevent the quickening of your footsteps toward the divine goal. The law of attraction inherent in creation. Setting aside the old superstitious beliefs, we should find out why we should seek God. When we look at the processes of nature, we will see why. So I shall discuss today's subject from an entirely different standpoint, from the standpoint of science and of metaphysics. You will see what a wonderful analogy there is between the descension of the universe from God and the ascension of the universe back to God. Inherent in creation is the law of attraction. Celestial bodies exert their gravitational attraction on one another. Human beings are subject to the pull of good or evil. Many persons take to drink or to various other evil diversions. The saints are intoxicated with God. The man who turns from the church to the bar in the village inn is drinking unhappiness, destruction of health, and loss of keenness of mind. But he who goes into the church within himself and quaffs the inspiration of bliss that flows from the vintage keg of silence is ever happy. So goes the search for the infinite. When you understand the law of gravitation, you can understand the best way to tune in with the pull of God, and therefore the best way to find Him. Gravity's effect is seen when two bodies are free to move and they are drawn toward each other. Gravitation, according to physical science, is that attraction which exists between masses of matter, by virtue of which every such mass tends toward every other mass with a force varying directly as the product of the masses, and inversely as the square of their distances apart. That is, if the distance between two masses is 1 foot, the attraction will be relatively strong, and if the distance is increased to 2 feet, the attraction will be only 1/4 as powerful. The law of gravity is universal, the same in the earth as in the sun, and in all objects in space. The sun gravitates the earth and the other solar planets and keeps them whirling around it. The earth gravitates the moon. The attraction of the earth for the bodies on its surface is the same as the earth's attraction toward the moon. The only difference is that the gravitational effect of the earth on the moon is reduced by the square of the distance from the moon to the earth's core. The mass of both objects and the distance between them determines the force of gravity. Gravity is not a one-sided pull, but the pull between two objects. Just follow this analogy. It will come to a beautiful spiritual understanding. Imagine, for example, that here are two bodies. You pull at one and it comes toward you, but if that body is pulling away from you with a force equal to your pulling, then there is a balance. The moon, by centrifugal force, is pulling away from the earth, but the gravitational attraction of the earth toward the moon keeps a balance. It is evident that the same force of gravity has given balance to the entire universe, so that the pull exerted by each object on every other maintains an orderly balance. Otherwise all things would have flown apart in infinite space. On the other hand, if gravity were the sole force at work in the cosmos, everything would have melted into one mass of matter. God's forces of attraction and repulsion at work in cosmic creation. With a giant telescope, 6,000 stars were visible in one small part of space, and though they seemed like little dots in the sky, most of them are 100 times bigger than the sun. Just think how immense God is, that the whole universe is contained in only a fragment of His being. The Lord seems to be having a lot of fun playing with these marbles in the sky. Creation came into being by the power of repulsion by which God sent forth from Himself His creative forces. By this outgoing creative power, God is repulsing us and the world of matter away from Himself, and yet at the same time He has instilled in His creation the force of His pull to draw us back into Himself, which is much greater. If God didn't pull us, we would be completely thrown into matter for unending incarnations. From the study of theogony, we learn that many ancient cultures ascribe the beginning of creation to the descent of gods, or celestial creative forces. The ancient Parsis, for example, believed in the gods Ormazd or Ahura Mazda and Ahriman, who evolved themselves out of primordial matter and were the two deities who created, respectively, good and evil. The origin of the material world is illustrated in the Egyptian notion of a cosmic egg, made by the god Ta, out of which creation issues. According to the Hindu belief, Brahma is the eternal self-existent being, Spirit the immutable absolute, which unfolds itself into creation by condensing a finite portion of its consciousness into causal, astral, and material objects through the gradations of subtle creative vibratory elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Spirit's consciousness as immanent in creation as the Creator is the world soul out of whom all souls have come. This Brahma, the transcendental ever-existing intelligence, emanates a hierarchy of individual creative intelligences. In the Sankhya doctrine of evolution of matter, we follow the chain of causes back to the principal creative intelligence, the unlimited eternal primordial nature, or Mahaprakriti. Out of this principle, or original nature, all existences have issued, and into it they will return. This primordial creative nature is endowed with its own volition to carry out the development of creation. Its first emanation as plastic nature contained the original soul or deity, Prajapati, out of which all individual souls have issued. The first physical beings were called Swayambhuva Manu, man born of the Creator, and Shatarupa, having 100 images or forms, just as Adam and Eve are the symbolic first man and woman of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Though the Hindu concept refers to the creative intelligences as deities, they are understood to be none other than individualized aspects of the one Spirit. God transforms Himself into these intelligences and then into matter and human beings, just as our consciousness can transform itself into a dreamland wherein we can see and experience everything as though it were real, human beings, earth scenes, plants, animals, and so on. But when we wake up we see they were all made of one dreaming consciousness. The magical power by which God differentiates His infinite consciousness into finite dream images and gives them a dream reality is called Maya, cosmic delusion. A tug of gravitation exists between God and Maya and man. God is pulling man and Maya is pulling man, and man is free to move toward either. God and man, God and cosmic delusion, are all pulling on each other. God is pulling creation, including man, toward Himself, and material man and nature are pulling away from God. Whatever exerts a gravitational pull toward God is good. Whatever pulls beings away from God is evil. There is a sort of balance when neither good nor evil predominate. But sometimes that balance is lost, as when man turns toward evil and pulls far away from God so that he feels less and less attraction to the divine. But no one can pull away from God completely. The stronger gravity of God will gradually draw the soul back to Him again, though it may take innumerable incarnations to do so. When you shoot an arrow, it travels with its force until that force dissipates and gravity causes it to fall back to earth. In the same way, we were propelled from God, and our desires are the force that keeps us moving away from Him, coursing through the sky of reincarnations. God's gravity may seem to have failed us, but He is constantly pulling us toward an inevitable return to Him. When our desires will be exhausted, then we will be drawn toward God again by the power of His gravity. How the thoughts of God evolve into matter. Now, thought is the most elastic of forces because it is the finest vibration of consciousness. You can divide thoughts into smaller and smaller units and you will never be able to reach the end. Conversely, you can increase in size, for example, a mental concept of the earth, expanding it throughout eternity, and still you will never be able to exhaust infinity. So God's first expression of creation is a vibratory consciousness, thoughtrons, or small units of thought. These first thoughts became positive and negative, because no creation is possible at all without duality. Without good and evil, light and shadows, only God's undifferentiated consciousness would remain. So God projected out of Himself units of positive and negative thoughts from which everything is created, just as a dream is created by units of thought. First, a world of ideas came into being, the causal universe. Then those units of thought became life-drons, the substance of an astral world of finer than atomic forces. Then life-drons became condensed into the material creation consisting of positive and negative protons and electrons, atoms, molecules, cells, and so on. Atomic physics demonstrates that all things in the material cosmos are made of atoms that vary in weight, density, power, size, and configuration and have within them the qualities necessary to inform the infinite varieties of matter and life. But science has yet to recognize the life-tronic power and thoughttronic intelligence behind the atomic building blocks that, in accord with God's cosmic laws wielded by Mahaprakriti, primordial nature, combine them to produce mineral, vegetable, animal, and human forms. Evolution versus involution. When God saw that He had driven these elements of creation out of Himself, from the finest to the grossest forms, the process of involution began to work. From the standpoint of our subject today, think of evolution as going away from God and involution as going back to God. For every process of evolution, there is a process of involution. As God's creative thoughts assumed their grossest form in matter, then involution began. The process of involution is going on all the time. God's dreaming consciousness manifests first in the stones, or inert minerals. It then begins to stir in the sensitivity of plants, but has no self-consciousness. Then come all forms of sentient life in the animal kingdom. The innate vitality and consciousness then finds expression in man, with his superior intelligent power to reason and discriminate. And finally, in the Superman, the superconsciousness of God is fully reflected. Thus does creation go away from God and then come back to Him again. God will give salvation not only to man, but to the planets, the earth, the stars, everything that has worked so hard for billions of years to provide a stage for a cosmic dream drama. Going back to God by the involutionary procedure of nature is a very slow process. But the discriminating man eventually asks, why wait millions of years before I can return to God? He reasons that he didn't ask to be created in the first place, that God created him without his permission and therefore he should release him. He refuses to wait longer. When that desire comes, man has made the first definitive turn back to God. When you truly want to be released from this earth dream, there is no power that can stop you from attaining liberation. Never doubt it. Your salvation is not to be achieved, it is already yours because you are made in the image of God, but you have to know this. You have forgotten it. The musk deer madly seeks the fragrant musk everywhere, and in its frantic search carelessly slips to its death from the high mountain crags. Had the foolish deer only turned its nose to the musk pouch within itself, it would have found that which it sought. Similarly, we have only to turn within ourselves to find our salvation in the realization that our true self, the soul, is made in God's image, manifesting the divine qualities inherent in the 5 stages of the soul's return to God. Man has evolved through eons. In order to quicken his evolution, his involution back to God, he has to make an effort to stimulate the process of natural evolution. He does this outwardly to better his physical existence. For example, man was created by nature to use his feet for locomotion. The process was too slow and too limited in distance, so he used animals to ride on. Then he invented the car and the airplane and so on. Now, why shouldn't we likewise accelerate our soul's evolution? The soul of man has to ascend through the 5 states, or stages of evolution, previously described before he gets back to God: mineral, plant, animal, man, and Superman. He is to accumulate unto himself the divine qualities inherent in each stage. 1. He must be transparent like the gems, without spots of defective perception. He has to develop their crystalline character by removing the mental blemishes in his otherwise sparkling mentality. His thinking and perception should have gem-like clarity that will undistortedly reflect the divine mind. This means his sensations must be pure. Misuse or overindulgence of any sense creates flaws in the sensibilities. But, if the gem of one's sentient mentality is unclouded, one then develops spiritual sensitivity. 2. The spiritually progressive man is consciously sensitive to life and his surroundings, like the sensitive response of plants to their environment. But, as the sensitivity of plants abhors harshness, the spiritually sensitive being shuns the coarseness of material things and finds himself gravitating toward God, as plants turn toward the sun. 3. Then comes the vitality of animals. Though they may have great strength and will power, they do not know how to use these energies intelligently. The progressive man must be full of vitality like the animal, but employ the animal's strong will, not for avaricious purposes, but to govern activity with self-control and to have mastery over the life force. When the vital force is always engaged in something good and worthwhile, and is not dissipated in bad habits or the abuse of sex, then man is going toward God. But, as soon as he gives in to plainly indiscriminate animalistic instincts, he is going toward matter. That is the common happening we see everywhere. The yogi, on the other hand, learns how to use vitality and will with wisdom. He is not weak. He is a master of self-control. He knows how to relax and throw the searchlight of vitality within to reveal the presence of spirit. The reversal of the life force from matter to spirit is called pranayama. By withdrawing the life current from externals through Kriya Yoga, the consciousness begins inwardly to awaken to its higher nature in God. 4. The rational man thereby becomes a thoughtful, discriminative being, ever progressive in his power to think and reason clearly. He develops pure reason, or discrimination, in which his rationality is no longer mixed up with doubt and misconception. He learns to reason with wise men and to understand the truths they express and exemplify. If you reason with people who are always in doubt and confused, and especially if your own consciousness is not yet firm in true understanding, your brain will also become infected by doubt and confusion. So many people try to win their points by argument, but I let them have a sense of victory right away. There is no use talking to them. Fools argue, wise men discuss. When we conversed with Master Swami Sri Yukteswar, it was a communion bound by pure reason and blessed by his wisdom. The masters cling to truth, not theories. But most people are enslaved by emotion and circumscribed by their own opinions. If two people really want to find truth, they can agree very quickly. It is only by developing both pure reason and pure feeling that you can reach God and truth. In the ordinary man, reason is uppermost and feeling is hidden. In the average woman, feeling is uppermost with reason hidden. If you have too much feeling, it becomes emotion and will take you into the meshes of matter, and too much reason becomes rationalization, which also takes you into delusive matter. When you balance reason and feeling by meditation, you will come to God and truth perceptions. By an interchange of these qualities, man and woman can help to balance in each other pure reason and pure feeling, thus helping each other toward union with God. But marriage is not the only way. By successful meditation one attains this balance within himself or herself, for it is already there, hidden in the soul. 5. After developing the balanced reason and feeling of the discriminative stage, the last state of involution is to be attained, the pure intuition and omniscience of the Superman. He is intuitively progressive in feeling his soul and spirit. He must then fully lift his consciousness from the body and materiality to his original omnipresent state. The freed soul is back once more with God. You can develop in yourself all these finer qualities by which God is processing matter once again into spirit. You can hasten this process in your own body by spiritualizing it through meditation and Kriya Yoga. You will see your body changing into a mass of light, atoms of condensed electromagnetic energy. When you gravitate toward God, those luminous atoms are realized to be naught else than the vibratory thoughts of God, the compressed consciousness of spirit, the paths of knowledge, devotion, and action. Of different prescribed paths that lead to God, I will show you how the law of spiritual gravity is applied to the ways of knowledge, devotion, and action. According to how you apply the principles of these paths, you are pulled either by spirit or by matter. The path of knowledge or reason. If you program yourself with theoretical knowledge, you will become a walking Victrola, able to repeat lofty phrases and to be considered a learned being, but your knowledge will be unsupported by your own realization or spiritual attainment. Such intellectualization keeps the ego tied to the physical faculties of mind and its relation to matter. Theoretical knowledge cannot give you realization about God. So don't waste your time on too much theory. Those who do so become lost in the jungle of reason and never get beyond mere theories. In the process of reasoning they never perceive truth, for truth is beyond reason. Most intellectualists thus become bound by their own conclusions. If you use your power of reason only to make money and seek material gain, again you will gravitate toward matter. So the masters say, do not use your God-given reason to become more and more mixed up in the labyrinth of matter and in the egoistic limitations of the intellect. With the power of discrimination, study and apply truth until it becomes your own intuitive realization. When you develop your intuition, you will feel the presence of God and His omniscience within you. That is called esoteric reason or jhana yoga. The path of devotion. If you have pure devotion, you will feel the pull of God and will find Him. But, again, there are two pulls in this path also, two forces pulling you, devotion to God and devotion to matter. Even death tries to remind us that it is foolish to be lured by material attractions. The miser is devoted to objects of matter and remains attached to them to the end, even though he at last has to leave everything behind. Yet to his final breath, he is just as devoted to material things as the yogi is to God. But the yogi reasons matter is external and possession of its objects is short-lived. Why should I concentrate on the little temporal things and exclude eternity? Devotion to God alone is the only way to everlasting fulfillment. The consciousness of the worldly man is circumscribed. He is devoted to his body, his surroundings, and his family. His attachment says us for and no more. He should rather use that family affection as a lesson in learning to expand his love. As soon as you love not only your family, but give that love to all, you are going toward God. That is why Jesus said, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." To use family affection for all, to give to the world the same love you have for self and family, is gravitation toward God. Lessen the consciousness of family, property, and all material attachments and begin to re-express the omnipresence you have lost. In loving God, do not lose your devotion in emotion. This sometimes happens on the path of devotion. I was surprised to find holy rollers in this country. It began with certain sects in India. But when devotion is expressed in physical emotion, the pure quality of love is lost in the external expenditure of the life energy in the muscles. When the body and mind gravitate toward God, they become calm and quiet. The consciousness and life force become interiorized when one is inwardly with God. True devotion is like a plummet that sinks into the sea bottom of the perception of God. That is Bhakti Yoga, the path of action. Some persons have a natural inclination to be active. They love the motion of working and serving. If you work for your own self, you are pulled toward matter. But if you work with the thought of doing everything for God, you are pulled toward God. When your activity centers only on making money for material advantages for yourself and your loved ones, or on any activity with a selfish end, you are going away from God. Thus do most people engage their energies and their attachments and their desires for more and more material acquisitions. But as soon as your active energy is used to seek God, you move toward Him. You see again this constant pull from God and from matter. One side says make money for material satisfaction, and the other side says find satisfaction in seeking God, in serving God, and in acquiring monetary success to help God's work of uplifting others spiritually, mentally, and physically. When you act for material gain, you are yielding to the gravitational pull of matter. When you are acting for God, you are linked to the gravitational pull of God. If your desire for material things and for God are even, you will be more or less at a standstill. If your desire for God becomes greater, then your desire for material things will be lessened. Engaging in spiritual activity consisting of both meditation and working with the thought that everything you do is for God, that is karma yoga. When in meditation you feel God's bliss eternal, you will no longer feel tied to the body, and you will be filled with enthusiasm to work for Him. You can't be a lover of God and be lazy. One who meditates and loves God is always active for Him and for others. Work for God, love God, be wise with God, and realize Him through Kriya Yoga. Seeking union with God by wisdom alone, by devotion alone, or through action alone is one-sided. The far superior way is to take your mind and vital forces and all your desires, and your devotion and wisdom and service, and dissolve them all in God. When by Kriya Yoga you can withdraw your life energy and consciousness from the 5 sense telephones, when you can withdraw your vitality from your body and mind and throw the searchlight of your attention on God, that is the highest way to God. By Kriya Yoga, you shut off the senses at will, and take your mind and life and vitality and sensibility and plunge into the infinite. The person within whom the aurora borealis of spirit is dancing, whether materially he possesses much or no outward glamour at all, he is the real soul. So the easiest and best way to God is not to be limited only to jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, or karma yoga, but to combine them. Work for God, love God alone, and be wise with God. Use your reason not to become an overstuffed intellect but to find God, gravitating toward intuitive wisdom gained in meditation and avoiding theoretical knowledge and materialistic rationalizing. Use your devotion not for worldly attachment to things or people, but for finding God, absorbing yourself in devotion and ecstasy with God. And work not for yourself under any circumstances, but for God and to help others. The culmination of these lies in following the direct highway to God through practicing Kriya Yoga, listening to the cosmic sound of God's voice of Aum, quieting the heart and breath which draw you toward body consciousness, and seeing His great light of omnipresence. Worshipping in the church or temple is a good habit, provided you learn from that inspiration to go into your own temple of meditation and ecstasy within. In the deepest hours of the night and in the quiet of the dawn, enter your inner cathedral and talk to your thought audiences, rousing all of them to be devoted to the infinite. And on the grand organ in your temple of peace the great Aum will be played. Start tonight to meditate earnestly. Do not wander aimlessly. Go straight to God. You have closed the gates to heaven by gravitating toward matter in the body. Gravitate toward Him who is constantly pulling you. Go back to God. Remember, the kingdom of God is within you. If you meditate and seek Him with wisdom, devotion, and good actions, you will surely find Him. Chapter: Acquiring Attunement with the Source of Success. Very few people realize that divine law governs all actions and determines the effects thereof. Thus, the destiny of each individual is directed not by chance, but according to the causes he himself sets into motion. By spiritual realization, every circumstance of one's life can be scientifically traced to a specific cause or pattern of causes. But, because the ordinary person does not perceive how the law of action and reaction is governing his life, he believes that what comes to him is in large part a matter of happenstance and fate. He often says, "This was my good luck," or "That's my unfortunate lot." There is no luck that one has not created before in this or other incarnations, and there is no hapless fate except what has been predestined, by one's own actions, here in the present or way in the past, sometimes many lives before entering the portals of this life. These self-created causes are why some people are born poor and others rich, some healthy and others sickly, and so on. Otherwise, where is the justice of God, if He made all of His children equal, and then consigned some to live in favorable circumstances and others in unfavorable conditions? The law of cause and effect that governs our lives is what we call karma. Karma means action, and it also means the fruits or effects of our actions. These effects, for good or ill, are what make it so hard for people to change themselves or their circumstances. There is no other explanation for the inequalities among humans that does not deny the justice of God. And without justice, I would say there is no use in living. If then your successes or failures have more or less been determined by yourself in the past, is there no remedy by which you can alter your present conditions? Yes, there is. Reason and will have been given to you. There is no difficulty that cannot be solved, provided you believe you have more power than your troubles, and you use that power to shatter your impediments. You have to make the scientific effort necessary to succeed. Success means to create at will what you need. The typical concept of success focuses on having a lot of money. But real success means to have the power to create at will what you need, the power to acquire those things that are truly necessary for your absolute existence and happiness. It is important, therefore, to understand in what lies real necessity, to know the difference between needs and wants. If the perception of needs is boiled down, then the necessities for a happy life can be easily met. The ideal of balanced living is a middle path between the ideas of the East and the West. The East says, meditate on God, never mind what you don't have. I think that is too extreme. At the other extreme, the West says, You must have a nice car and house and new clothes and everything that will make you comfortable and keep you entertained. It doesn't matter whether you can afford it or not. Luxury is the goal in the West. It is a habit, and the law of habit makes one bound to his accustomed ways. Simple living does not mean poverty or poverty consciousness. There are destitute people whose lives are miserable. That is not the ideal of simple living. Simplicity means to be free of desires and attachments, and supremely happy within. It requires a masterful mind and a very strong will to live simply. It entails neither hardship nor deprivation, but the wisdom to work for and be content with what you truly need. To spend money on foolish things, even if you have the means to do so, is weakness. Practice self-control and reduce your wants to purposeful necessities. And do not live beyond your means. That is the first lesson to learn if you want to be prosperous. Spend less than your income, otherwise, you will never be satisfied and happy. Above all, hold to the thought, my happiness is unconditional, I can do without anything. But, since God has given me a body to look after, I shall do my best to supply it with the proper necessities of life. How grandly and simply the saints of India live. Possessing little, they are wealthy beyond the riches of kings. All nature begins to synchronize with them. Their complete inner satisfaction is what you should create within yourself, to learn to be happy with whatever you have. Of course, modern living requires more necessities than does residing in a hermit's hut. But instead of carrying with you through life an attachment to a lot of possessions, you should cultivate the power to acquire what you need when you need it. If you haven't that power, you are poor no matter how much you possess. Even a Henry Ford or a Rockefeller may be said to be poor by that standard, because needs do not consist only of physical necessities. No amount of money can assure health or happiness. Prosperity means uniform fulfillment for body, mind, and soul. Imagine George Eastman, who invented the Kodak, had every material thing that anyone could desire. Think of it. He had luxury, but there was something wrong with his prosperity, for which reason his existence was intolerable to himself. Consequently, he ended his life by sending a bullet through his head. Happiness can never come merely from wealth and possessions. Jesus Christ did not have any money, but he had the unlimited prosperity of God at his command. He demonstrated this many times, as on the occasion when he fed 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread. And even when death came, its cruelty could not take away what he had inside. To the end he thought first of others. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. To be all round prosperous, you must follow the example of Jesus and not that of unscrupulous businessmen. If you learn to apply the divine law of prosperity, it will wait on you. That is the secure way. It is the only condition in which you can be secure in this world. That wealth no robber can steal, it is the security that everyone needs. Cultivate prosperity in order to help others. The law of prosperity cannot be manipulated by man for his own selfish advantage. The working of that law is controlled by God, and He doesn't permit His laws to be bent or broken arbitrarily. If man works in harmony with the divine law of success, he receives abundance. If by wrong actions he disrupts its generous flow into his life, he punishes himself. How are you to work in harmony with the principles of that divine law? First of all, as I said, leave behind desire for an attachment to luxuries. Develop your mind power so that it is satisfied with simple things. After that say, well, my needs are only a part of my responsibility. I have dependents and must fulfill my obligations to them also. Provide for your family, but never spoil your children with too much money. Unless you include the welfare of others in your prosperity, you will never be ideally prosperous. I do not mean just a disinterested giving of money to needy persons, but a sincere reaching out to help others help themselves. Then you will see a tremendous law of supply at work in your own life. No matter what your situation might be, that law of reaping the good that you sow will be always with you to help you. Most people think first and foremost about themselves, and about making money to satisfy their own desires. If you do that, sooner or later you are going to be deceived. Rather, you should start with this thought: my life's duty is to make others happy. Be motivated by how your actions and plans can be of benefit to others. Then devise the means to accomplish your goals. In order to serve, you must have the necessary resources. If you milk the cow, you must feed the cow. The ambition to live well and be prosperous becomes spiritualized if the purpose is to better serve others by being able to include them in your prosperity. In rendering good service, you are bound to get good returns, and when you get good returns, you can improve your own living standard and do even more for others. That is how the divine law works. Have faith in the power of God. You are living directly by the power of God and not by human prosperity. You may argue that unless you have jobs you cannot eat. All right, but even if I put an abundance of food and money before you, and suddenly your heart fails, what good will those material things do you? None. It is God alone who has given you life and the power to work and grow and accomplish. Your very existence is a manifestation of His will, so why shouldn't you depend directly on Him? You must absolutely remember that. If a need arises, I say, well, I must get busy. But I never wish for anything or undertake any action without first seeking God's guidance. Father, I will reason, I will, I will act, but guide Thou my reason, will, and activity to the right thing that I should do. Then all the forces of fulfillment work with me. In little things and in big things I have seen that divine power work. I am working for God alone. I have left everything for His cause. I am His child. If you live with the consciousness that you are His child and that He is your Father, and make up your mind to do your best with dogged determination, then in spite of obstacles, and even if you make mistakes, His power will be there to help you out. I live by that law. In that way I was able to acquire our Self-Realization Fellowship headquarters, even though I hadn't the material means in hand to do so. And see, even in this time of depression, still I have bought this temple. I worked the divine law, and this temple is the result. Unless you also live by that law, you cannot know the power of which I speak. If you can go through your tests smiling with faith in God, and without harboring any doubts, you will see how God's law works. In San Francisco, I had only $200 in the bank and was about to begin a lecture campaign. I had not enough money even to make a start, and many large bills had to be paid. I said, God is with me. He has given me this trouble and He will look after me. I am doing His work, I know He will help me. If the whole world forsakes you, but you know that He is with you, His law will work its wonders for you. When my secretary came to me and I told him how much we had in the bank, he literally collapsed on the floor. I said, get up. He was shaking. We are going to jail for not paying our bills. I said, we are not going to jail. In 7 days we will have all the money we need for the campaign. He was a doubting Thomas, but I had faith. I was not in need of money for any gain of my own, but to spread God's work. I had no fear even for the enormity of my troubles. Fear is afraid of me. What is there to fear? Nothing should give you fear. Face all troubles with faith in God and you will conquer. Bhagavad Gita says, with heart absorbed in me, and by my grace thou shalt overcome all impediments. And think of it. I was walking in front of the Palace Hotel when an elderly woman came up to me and said, can I talk with you? We exchanged a few words and then out of the blue she said, I have money to burn. Can I help you? I replied, I don't need your money. Why should you offer money to me when you don't even know me? She answered, but I do know you, I have heard so much about you. And right there she wrote out a check for $27,000. I saw in that the hand of God. In having God we have everything. But the greatest victory I had was in Phoenix. If only everyone could feel the grace of God as I have felt, they would know, as I do, that in Him they already have everything. That was my experience in Phoenix. I was deeply, deeply praying and meditating, because I had to meet a great need in the morning and someone had failed me. My prayer was not for money, but for freedom. I said to Divine Mother, why am I put to such troubles? Why do I have to face such a crisis? But I didn't stop there. I went on meditating, and then I prayed to the Mother, talk to me. If you tell me to do so, I will leave everything behind and walk out of the organization singing thy name. I do not need anything but you. I ask nothing for myself. Test me. If you will it, I shall at this moment leave everything. In thy light I shall walk away. When Divine Mother saw that I meant what I said, this is what she replied. I freed thee long ago, but because thou thinkest thou art not free, that is why thou art not free. Dance of life or dance of death, know that these come from me, and as such rejoice. What more dost thou want than that thou hast me? From that day I found freedom. If you have in your consciousness the desire to please God above all else, He will look after you. What more dost thou want than that thou hast me? Will you remember that? Every one of you? It isn't much to remember. If you will meditate and sincerely pray to God, you will find Him, and He will bring to you all the prosperity you need. Use the law of meditation. It is the law of all laws, for it brings response from the power behind all power. I knew when Divine Mother spoke those words to me that all would be well. The necessity was met and I was saved from a catastrophe. That power will work for you as it has always worked for me. I speak these truths from my own experiences. It would not be possible for me to talk about them if I hadn't demonstrated them in my own life. I live by faith in God. My power is God. I do not believe in any other power. As I concentrate on that power, it works through me. I have been referred to as one of the most successful lecturers in this country. Thousands have been taught by me. Not that I am proud of myself on that account. My success is only because I have believed solely in the power of God. Eventually I gave up all public lecture work. I am giving up everything now for God. I find that I have accomplished that part of what my life's purpose was to be. That purpose is to pick souls from the crowds and help them to know God. I have found such souls all over the country, and I am training them. I move by spirit. There has been no thought of money, but of service to mankind. And because of that, the Lord has opened up all channels to support my existence and the existence of this work of self-realization fellowship. I wish to serve you, that is all. That is why I am here. The minute I need help, it is there from the divine. Some money was needed for Christmas. What happens? A student wrote and said, "You have a cash balance in the bank in Detroit. What do you want done with it?" I said, "Send it immediately." My need was fulfilled at the right time. That power of God is working with you also. You will see it is so if you have faith and know that prosperity comes not from material sources but from God. Seek God, contact, and He will guide you. The Lord doesn't tell you that you do not have to think for yourself, nor that you need not use your initiative. You have to do your part. The point is, if you cut yourself off from the source by wrong actions and desires, and by lack of faith and divine communion, then you cannot receive His all-powerful help. But, if you are guided by attunement with God, He will help you to do the right thing, and to avoid mistakes. The way to start is by deep and regular morning and evening meditation. The more you meditate, the more you will realize there is something behind the kingdom of ordinary consciousness where a great peace and happiness reign. Practice the presence of this peace and happiness, for it is the first proof of God contact. It is the conscious realization of truth within yourself. That is what you need. That is how to worship truth, for we can worship only what we know. Most people worship God as something intangible, but when you begin to worship Him as real, through your own inner perception, you will feel increasingly the presence of His power in your life. No matter what else you might do, nothing will produce that God contact which comes from deep meditation. Fervent effort to increase the inner peace and happiness born of meditation is the only way to realize God. The time to pray to God for guidance is after you have meditated and felt that inner peace and joy. That is when you have made divine contact. If you think you have a need, you can then place it before God and ask whether it is a legitimate prayer. If you feel inwardly that your need is just, then pray, Lord, you know that this is my need. I will reason, I will be creative, I will do whatever is necessary. All I ask of you is that you guide my will and creative abilities to the right things that I should do. Be fair with God. Perhaps He has something better for you than what you are praying for. It is a fact that sometimes your most fervent prayers and desires are your greatest enemies. Talk sincerely and justly with God, and let Him decide what is right for you. If you are receptive, He will lead you, He will work with you. Even if you make mistakes, don't be afraid. Have faith. Know that God is with you. Be guided in everything by that power. It is unfailing. This truth is applicable to every one of you. By practice of ever deeper meditation, you can eventually go into the superconscious state of inner realization and remain therein while performing on the conscious plane all of your activities. When you learn to work from the state of superconsciousness and to work with divine inner happiness no matter what you are doing, you will feel with you always the presence and power of God. As I perceive, may you perceive. I have delivered His message to you, and I see His great light in you all. In that light I bless you. The ethereal power of God flows through me, through my speech, my brain, my cells, every wisp of my consciousness. Every thought is a channel through which His divine light is passing. Open your hearts and realize that the divine light is also passing through you. As I perceive, may you perceive. As I behold, may you behold. Chapter: Business, Balance, and Inner Peace. Restoring equilibrium to the work week. In the 1920s, American industrialist Henry Ford introduced the idea of a 5-day work week. The proposal, heartily endorsed by Paramahansaji, brought forth a response in this article. The word holiday sprang from two words, holy day. A holy day should be a time for introspective thinking and for man to nurture his sacred soul qualities. One of the 10 Commandments is remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, a day of rest and spiritual renewal. Christians observe the Sabbath on Sunday, a day for basking in the sunlight of wisdom. The Hindus reserve a number of days in the year for spiritual purposes. Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas correspond to some of the sacred days of the Hindus. The Durga Puja festival is as widely observed in India as is Christmas in the West. Man is a spiritual and a material being. He should develop himself spiritually by inner discipline and become materially efficient by developing his business faculties. Primitive man kept all his mental faculties busy, satisfying the needs of the material life. His time was spent in hunting, eating, and sleeping. Modern man tries scientifically to meet the present material conditions of life. What primitive man did unmethodically, modern man does methodically. This method in modern man's efforts for material success has indirectly improved his inner faculties. The masters of India counsel direct development of the inner faculties, such as willpower to fight temptation, feeling for serving fellow beings, and intuition for directly realizing truth. Crime and violence are the bitter fruits of an imbalanced civilization. If making money to secure material comforts is necessary for man, then making happiness is supremely necessary. Possession of material riches without inner peace is like dying of thirst while bathing in a lake. People crave different things, money or fame or spirituality, as a result of early habits and specific environmental influences. That is why the people of both the East and the West lead one-sided lives. The East is generally more spiritually inclined and the West more materially inclined. But we cannot live happily by spiritual doctrines only or by riches only. To bring a balance into the lives of men of East and West, both should adopt a method of developing an equilibrated life. People in general spend 6 days of the week in making money, and even the 7th in thinking about it, but they spend hardly any time on self-development. One reason the West has so much crime, so many murders and robberies in spite of its developed civilization, is that people are too busy securing the commodities of material comfort and have no time to reflect on the practical value of following moral and spiritual principles. If material poverty is to be avoided, spiritual poverty is to be abhorred, for the latter is the underlying cause of all human suffering. A practical spiritual man is a happy man, and only a happy man is a successful man. 100% material prosperity among the inhabitants of a city will not prevent murders and crime. Following the universal principles of mutual service, spontaneous cooperation, love for the spiritual life, and disciplining the human sense cravings is wholly necessary for the harmonious, happy, healthy, prosperous life of any community. Official records annually show that almost $1 billion are stolen by young men and women ranging in age from 15 to 30. We have the New York newspapers report that 400,000 more meals were served in the jails this year than last year. Why is all this? Because the ordinary man's attention is not yet fixed on the vital problems of the art of living. Why not use some of the money spent for erecting and maintaining jails to create how-to-live schools, which will prevent children from becoming criminals? Criminal offenders grown worse in jails are let loose in healthy society for further spread of the bacteria of crime. Most persons will say, "Oh, I am too busy with my business to think about the art of living." We all know about that. Someday we will come to it, but what we are interested in right now is money. But what purpose would money serve if one succeeds in making millions at the cost of a complete nervous breakdown and loss of poise and happiness? Spiritualizing ambition with the ideal of service. Since God has given us hunger, and since we have a physical body to look after, we must have money, and we should earn it honestly and scientifically by serving the right needs of our fellow beings. Business life need not be a material life. Business ambition can be spiritualized. Business is nothing but serving others materially in the best possible way. Those stores that start out with the idea of only making money are readily recognized as commercial money-making dens. The stores that concentrate on serving customers with the best articles at the minimum cost will succeed and will also advance the moral development of the world. I have never forgotten the remark of a fine salesman in a large shop where I was selecting an overcoat for myself. "Sir," he said, "I am not trying just to sell you something. I am trying to find out exactly what you need." He did not try to sell me the most expensive overcoat. He showed me a less expensive one that exactly suited me in every way. I was pleased to get what I needed at a reasonable price. Thus he secured in me a permanent customer for his company. People should spiritualize their business ambitions by starting out with the idea of serving the proper needs of their fellow beings. Not only should man make money by serving, and thereby gets something for himself in return, but should also work for the sake of acquiring money to use in creating institutions that will serve public needs. When one has made a great deal of money, and simultaneously helped his workers and associates to become more prosperous, and then uses his wealth for helping others to help themselves, that is spiritualizing ambition. Wealthy parents who leave too much money for their children choke the evolutional development of self-created, self-earned success and happiness in their offspring. Even the brainy man must exercise ambition, or he does injustice to himself by crippling his faculties. By injuring himself he sets a bad example, and thus hinders the progress of humanity. That is why I agree with Mr. Henry Ford in helping people to help themselves,